we're going to go over in this video is how to write the equation of a line in slope-intercept form. To write the equation of a line, you have to have two things. These two things are needed to do this. You need the slope and you need a y-intercept. Once you know the slope and once you know the y-intercept, you simply plug it into the formula. Remember, these equations of lines start off with y is equal to whatever the slope is, you put it in this spot right here. Whatever the y-intercept is, you put it in this spot right here. This formula is usually written like this: y is equal to mx plus b, where the m stands for the slope and the b stands for the y-intercept. A lot of times when they say slope-intercept form, this is like the formula for slope-intercept form. What I'm going to go over next are the 4 different situations students will be given in algebra where they'll have to write the equation of a line. Now, all these equations are going to be written in slope-intercept form. So, situation number 1, they're simply going to give you the slope of the line. They're going to give you the y-intercept of the line. And you simply have to put those two pieces of information in the right spots in the formula. You put the slope where the slope goes, you put the y-intercept where the y-intercept goes, and now you have the equation of a line. That's one situation. A situation I've already gone over before, where they give you a graph. Again, you're going to have to put the slope in the right spot. That means you look at the graph, find 2 points, count blocks between those 2 points, with how many you go up and down going in the top, how many you go across going in the bottom of the fraction. You figure out what the slope is by doing that, put that in the slope spot. Then you look at the graph and you figure out what the y-intercept is. You put the y-intercept in the right spot, then you've got the equation of the line. There are 2 other situations. One where they're going to give you the slope of the line and they're going to give you a point. That means the piece of information you're missing is the y-intercept. You're going to have to use some algebra to figure out what the y-intercept is. Once you've already been given the slope, you put it there, you do some algebra, figure out what the y-intercept is, and you put it in the right spot. And the last situation you will encounter, where they just simply give you 2 points. Again, you're going to have to use some algebra. You're going to have to use the slope formula to figure out what the slope is, and then you're going to have to use the slope-intercept form to figure out what the y-intercept is. Once you have those 2 pieces of information, then you simply put it in the right spot. The first situation I'm going to go over is where they simply give you the slope and they give you the y-intercept. And you need to write this equation in slope-intercept form. So again, remember, slope-intercept form is y is equal to, always start off with y is equal to, then you write down the slope. M stands for the slope, put x beside the slope, and here on the end you put the y-intercept. So I'm simply going to take the information, plug it into the formula. Y is equal to, my slope is 1/2, I put an x beside it, and my y-intercept is positive 3, I put plus 3. I have just written the equation for this line right here. It has a slope of 1/2, it has a y-intercept of 3. I'm going to do the exact same thing for this line with a slope of 2 and a y-intercept of -4. Remember, always start off with y is equal to. You write down the slope, you put x beside the slope, and you put the y-intercept there on the end. Y is equal to, my slope on this one is 2. I put an x beside it, and then here on the end, since this is a -4, I'm going to put -4. My y-intercept is -4. On this one, my y-intercept was positive 3, so I put a plus 3. On this one, it's a -4, so I put a -4. Example number 3. Example number 3, number 4, and number 5 are the ones that give students difficulty. Those examples for 1 and 2, those were simple examples. You just simply plug the numbers in there and you've got the equation of the line. On these, sometimes can give students some difficulty. Remember, you want this in slope-intercept form. So you're going to start off with y is equal to. You're going to write down the slope, you're going to put it beside x, and here on the end you're going to put the y-intercept. So y is equal to, look at my slope, it's -5. I put an x beside it, and then my y-intercept is 0. What gives students difficulty with this one is they don't want +0 here on the end. You don't write zeros in these formulas of these equations for the line. So you're simply going to write y is equal to -5x, and that's it. Same for number 4. Number 4, instead of having a y-intercept of 0, we're going to have a slope of 0. So again, we go back to our formula. Y is equal to, we write down the slope, put x beside it, and then we put the y-intercept there on the end. Y is equal to, my slope is 0. I put x beside it, and my y-intercept is -6, so I put -6 here on the end. Again, we're not supposed to write zeros. One way of looking at this is 0 times x. What's 0 times x? That's 0. What's 0 minus 6? Y is equal to -6. That's the equation of this line. Sometimes you need to think about what it looks like on the coordinate plane. On the coordinate plane, it's going to look like this right here. I've got my x-axis, and I've got my y-axis. If I'm going to graph this, remember a slope of 0 goes across. It's a horizontal line. So I would go on my y-axis, I'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down to -6, and I would draw a line that goes straight across because this is a slope of 0. It's not positive, it's not negative, this is a slope of 0. This line does not cross the x-axis, so its equation would not have an x in it. So some students will simply know that if it's got a slope of 0, they don't even have to go through this process. They can simply write down y is equal to -6 because they understand what it looks like on the graph. And that's what makes this next one so difficult. The reason students have difficulty with this one is all the other ones, we use the formula and put the information into the formula. For this one, the formula is not going to do you any good. There's no place to put a y-intercept. In fact, they gave you an x-intercept. There's no place to put the slope because there is no slope. So what you need to remember is what a line that has no slope looks like. A line with no slope is a line that goes up and down. It is a vertical line. So if I draw a vertical line, the only axis a vertical line is going to hit is the x-axis. That's the only line it's going to intersect. In fact, they give me an x-intercept right here of 1. So I'm going to go over on the 1, and I'm going to draw a line that goes straight up and down. Here's what that line looks like. So now I need to figure out a formula for this. Since this isn't going to help me, let's look at the information it gives me. The only axis this line is hitting, because it has no slope, is the x-axis. So guess what? Instead of starting off with y is equal to, this line is going to start off with x is equal to. Because there's going to be no y in this equation at all, because it doesn't touch the y-axis. In fact, what is my x? X is equal to 1. So ones with a 0 slope and ones with no slope are a little bit more difficult, especially this one because there's no formula that you're going to use. This picture is just my thought processes of how I figured out what this equation is going to be.